There we go. So for today, I'm gonna zoom in on the trends again, but in this way, just to see how to actually practically use these. It's nice that I say like, oh, we're going towards more of a For You page, but what actually changes for marketing, or what practical things can you do to actually make sure that you implement these changes on time, that by the time we truly see this fully rolling out, for you, it's going to be a minor change. So just some micro habits to add that actually help give you a bit of leeway towards the end of the year. The first big one we noticed, there are some more people. There we go. So the first thing we actually noticed when asking around is that everyone noticed we're switching to more of a For You page instead of the regular content provided by your connections. Yeah. So what is a challenge here is that since it's becoming more of a For You page, your posts are now shown to strangers and not just your followers anymore. Usually when we're used to talking to just our followers, I'm gonna switch back there, I'm not gonna see my slides. When we're used to just talking to our followers, we're not as scared to write a post because we kind of know them. But when everyone hears, oh, my post is going to be seen by strangers, we start writing content as if suddenly we have to speak to 500 unknown people at once. Don't worry about this. Just keep in mind, like, your one or two ideal clients, we all have them, the one that you know, like, that's the perfect client, or that one really likes the content or enjoys the tips. Keep those people in mind and keep writing to those people. That way you really stay within your ICP. But then, what else? Because we're moving towards the For You page, it's going to be very important that LinkedIn can tell exactly what it is we're doing, who we are, who to connect us to. So first, you have to understand who we are to find the right target audience. So for yourself, just define your 3 core topics. Short sentence, one sentence thing. What are the 3 main things the company is built on? List your specific problems. Like, okay, this is what we do. These are the problems we solve. And then try to rotate or keep these in there somewhere during the month. 3 months, 6 months. Just make sure you kind of touch upon the same couple topics once in a while, so that it's very clear for the algorithm, because you're talking about the same thing over and over. But that's actually what you stand for. Example for Willow here, we help small businesses with LinkedIn strategy, content creation, so social media analytics. There are a couple things I can rotate through my content. I can add coaching as well. I say 3 because it's usually easy just to find 3 core topics. If you can find more or have like a full brand book, use that, but just try and rotate between the same ones without becoming boring, because that's the next thing. Then, of course, go through the stranger test. When writing a post, just ask yourself, if an absolute stranger were to now see this, would they kind of understand what I'm doing? And if not, edit it just slightly. So maybe add context, just say like, okay, because I'm a marketeer or in my field or in marketing, I see this. And maybe add to the bottom, okay, what is it exactly that you help with? Or what is it exactly that you do? That people clearly know, like, okay, why am I reading all of this? Well, it's because of this. And then step 3 is rewrite your company and personal profile bio, just because we want to make it clear to algorithm what we do. The easiest way is through our LinkedIn bio, just making sure it's completely updated. Plus, this is something not many people know. If you change your bio often, you actually get another boost of visibility just from LinkedIn, because they just see it as you putting in more effort to stay as up to date as possible. So you actually get like a little extra boost, which usually comes with network or connection requests. So for example, under my name, I could write, I am a LinkedIn strategist for B2B companies, and then like the vertical line, so that's not the capital I, that's like the vertical, or a pipe, if you look it up in the symbols, and then actually what problem you solve, to make it easy to find you. Also a nice thing to do in your company page for your Instagram, when you look at your name, so not your handle, but just your name, to actually add that pipe or that vertical line with a bit more information, because then if you were to type in on Instagram, for example, B2B companies, you also see your name pop up because it technically sees it as one long name. That's a fun one to add. Then people who have shown the slides to know that we posted a lot more in 2025 thanks to AI, but at the same time reached less people. Like the posts aren't reaching people as easily as they used to. Partly because, well, the volume increased. The other half, because of AI, the quality kind of lowered. We were happy with the post that AI provided and didn't really think, like, is it still up to quality? So just a lot of, my apologies, subpar quality posts were posted. Plus, the high volume has had an effect. If we are moving towards like a For You page situation, naturally, because we're going to keep connecting to the right people, your impressions are also going to look a bit off. In theory, if the For You page works correctly, those impressions should increase. So that's also something we keep in mind when we see a big increase in impressions soon, if it were to happen. So the first thing for this trend I recommend is just see what else you can track. Don't just use impressions to guess if you're doing well or not. Go beyond that. Of course, you have engagement, which easily shows, do people like my content or not, or is it worth engaging with? Also look at saves, like, do people bother bookmarking your post? Like, is it worth coming back to? Do they share it to someone? Do you receive DMs if you put like a call to action, or do people ask questions? Does it lead to profile visits? If you can check if you get conversions, like on your website or something, if you see they actually click through, try to see what data you also have available or other data you have available that you can also play with. Because usually it just comes down to different signals. Even if someone, I always say as a joke, if someone were to walk up to me in the bakery and just say, hey, I saw your post out of nowhere, for me, that would be like the epiphany of success. Like if someone randomly found me in the bakery and remembered my content, you're doing very well. But that's also a clear signal. Like maybe the person never interacted. I never knew he read it. But that way I do see it as well. So you might not see it in your numbers directly, but look at the different things you're seeing. Of course, the save worthy test. If you're making educational content for like team buildings or something, don't bother with this. But if it's educational content, then ask yourself, like, would this be worth saving? Like, if someone read this, would they instantly say, like, oh, I would love to be able to come back to this post. This really is like a very valuable insight. If not, either don't post it, if you can, or just see where you can actually make it better. Like, are there insights and with insights, I mean like personal insights. Is there something you can add that makes it truly unique to the rest? And try to fit between either fully educational, that you go full in depth showing your expertise. For example, you explain a term and then you say, okay, but this is how I actually implement it in my business life, or this is how I do it, or this is how we do it in the company. Make it actionable. Same thing. Like, okay, this is maybe the trend we're seeing. This is how we're putting it into action. That also encourages other people to take the same action. More insights, things that you learned, and how, like, try to stick between those three. And then, of course, like, keep your quality over your quantity always. And I think most people know the saying, but because it's so easy to post so much with AI, we kind of forgot the whole idea. So even if you post multiple times a week, like if you keep your frequency high, you're going to get a lot of impressions, which makes it look as if you're doing well. But maybe all those posts are having zero conversion. So it's great that people are seeing you, but they're not doing anything with your content. So are we truly doing a good job? Or would it be better to post less, like once or twice a week? If you come from 2 to 3, post less and use that extra time to actually up your quality again. And in most cases, sometimes I do recommend people post less. They actually see either an equal result or sometimes even better results because they suddenly have breathing room, 1. And 2, they can actually focus on one piece for a little longer, make it just a little better, and that actually already has some exponential results. Easy ways to do this, just add an extra specific example for your company. before you come at me saying, I can't mention a client, I'm not asking you to mention clients. You can easily say a client in this sector without actually having to mention who it is. Extra data you got from somewhere, extra stories you heard. If you are close with your sales team, stories are always nice to get there. Ask them, what did you hear? What nice insights have maybe your calls led to? Or what stories have you heard from potential clients? And then the one thing that I'm just as guilty of as anyone else, so here I'm not preaching, but we should really get engagement back into our daily social media ritual. In 2025, we almost stopped engaging in general. Not sure why, but we just stopped liking, stopped commenting. Anything that was more than looking became too much. But the problem with that is that LinkedIn loves it when you just engage with someone. So in theory, that's what they call the engagement ritual. 10 to 15 minutes before you post anything, if you just spend some time commenting on like 5 posts or something, whatever post goes through your account just does 100 times better. So if Willow needs to post something, in theory, I should spend 15 minutes being active on the platform before my post goes live, and it will do, you can clearly see it'll do a lot better. But in general, just try to engage more. Even if it's just complimenting someone on a picture, or doesn't have to be like a big message with lots of insights or something, just saying, hey, nice job, or congratulations, or show that you're more than just watching. Don't be the creep, the social media creep in the back that's just watching and not engaging. Try to at least have some kind of opinion. My favorite one of all, don't mind the spelling error. You can see I did not make these with AI. Is the big battle between, we're using a lot of AI, but it also shows that we're not being authentic. But we're not going to stop using AI because it's really nice and it's really fast. So how do you mix those two correctly? I hear my buzzer going off again. So I hear this one so often. Being real is your competitive advantage. Now, I think most of us try our best to be real, but are just either in a position that we do all the marketing for the entire company by ourselves. Maybe we're an office manager that's just got it handed to us, or so yes, we try to be real, but we also have to make sure we get everything done. So it's usually not a problem of us not wanting to be real, it's just a time management thing. So what I recommend, and I know everyone's busy in January, but for the beginning of the year, create what I like to call your authenticity bank. One big document with everything that makes you unique or authentic compared to everyone else out there. So why is your company so special in what they do, or what makes you so different? You can include things like client stories. If you're lucky, they're already on the website somewhere, or success stories. 5 mistakes you've made and that you've learned a lesson from. Doesn't mean you have to post these. That's not for that reason, but just to show that you're not perfect. Authentic also means not, or daring to not be perfect. So mistakes you might have made, unpopular opinions you might have. You might work in a certain niche and yet think like, I don't completely agree with this one. Also nice ones to voice an opinion, because again, all the content we see from AI doesn't have an opinion. It's a summary of a topic, but it's not an opinion. Some behind the scenes moments, think about your team buildings, maybe fun moments or rituals you guys have around the coffee machine, something that you think is normal, but the outside world actually doesn't know. Maybe your CEO loves to ski, I don't know. We're usually very strict with our image online. So if you find a couple small details that show you a bit of personality without having to open yourself up to a whole array of questions, already does a lot. Maybe, yeah, that's for a personal profile, 5 decisions you're wrestling with, or maybe a trend that you're wrestling with, or you see, I'm going to pick one out, like maybe HR, you see a lot of AI content coming up, but then what do you do with it in the HR sector, which is supposed to be like the more human sector? I'm just making a very broad example here. So those can also be things you're wrestling with, or that you're wondering about, that keeps you up at night. But all of this is like a small database of what makes you unique. Now I'm going to sound like a crazy person. You can also copy paste this entire document back into whichever AI tool you use and just say like, this is what makes me unique. Make sure that at least one of these points is always present in one of my posts somehow. So it sounds counterintuitive that we make this to be more authentic instead of AI and then post it back in AI, but it works. Trust me on this one. But if you have this, it's also easy to show colleagues or just to refer back to once in a while, like, okay, what makes a difference? It's like writing out your tone of voice or your brand book. It's just something else, because AI is a new branch in that, I guess. Something nice just to have with you that you can show people, colleagues, whatever, like this is what makes us special. And then the only I could write this test. So whenever you're making something, again, whether it's educational, personal, doesn't matter, ask yourself, like, could AI or anyone else have written this? Assuming you're not an absolute AI nerd like I am, your AI tool shouldn't completely know you or shouldn't completely understand everything we do. I've built an entire knowledge base that my AI tools can pull from, so they're a little closer to me than the average AI user. But normally, assuming you still get some generic content, what could you add that AI couldn't have known, or someone else who doesn't work in your company couldn't have known? Whether it's, again, specific example, not necessarily naming names, just saying which sector it's from, actual numbers or results. Like I can show a screenshot of some numbers in Willow, like, hey, I might be saying this technique works, but here are 3 clients who actually do this, and these are the numbers. You don't have to show them who the client is. Most people don't recognize them either ways, but I can actually show you numbers. Especially if I make sure the name's not visible, it's completely fine to use. Your personal opinion or take on something. We're doing it less and less, but it's still the most valuable thing, especially if you're in a service sector. The only thing that makes you different from your competitor is just how you do things. It's how you offer the service, the difference between one coach and another is just personality in most cases, which one you connect with the most. So throw in that bit of personal opinion or that personal insight. A story, can you link it to something? Is the whole post you've written, can you actually give like a concrete context example with you in it? I'm not sure if you guys saw the post from Cowboy, the bikes. One of the employees posted that he was walking alone in Brussels, got approached by 2 men trying to sell him a stolen Cowboy bike, not realizing he was a Cowboy employee. The chances of that happening were very, very slim. But he said, at least this way I got I had a first-hand take on how our theft system works, or reporting system. That's a very nice way to kind of market the whole system that goes behind, like if you report it stolen. But at the same time, because of the personal example, everyone read it from top to bottom. So that's something you can add. And then 3, show your face at work. Most people get scared when I say this, but I'm not saying you should start vlogging or become an influencer, but just actually like maybe take 3 photos of you guys working in the office and just use that once in a while. Just give them like an idea. What does the office actually look like? Most people know our brand, but have no clue what our workspace looks like. So always a fun post to use. A screenshot with quick insights, assuming there's nothing confidential on the screen, but if you just spend hours working on maybe a Canva design or you're going mad, like it's been 3 hours, I still can't get it right. Every marketeer will understand. So it's a funny insight or a funny post to share. What I learned making this, also applicable to Canva. Like if you've been struggling for hours, what maybe have you learned? It could be anything about new features, all the way to I do not have patience. But also a nice post, because again, you're letting them in. And then 4, I'm going to keep saying this, you're going to hear me repeat it often, is move away from the generic statements and add a bit of opinion or personality. So just try to add some more eyes into your post. So like business should focus on LinkedIn. If you rewrite it as I helped 3 clients this month get leads from LinkedIn, you added the I statement, proving like I'm also involved in the process. It's not just some vague statement I'm making. No, I can actually show you an example of why I'm saying this, which again shows that you're being authentic. You're not just pulling it out of thin air and claiming or preaching you should be doing this. you're actually proving you're in the field. How I like to say it sometimes is that if we use AI or the coaches on the side of the playing field, when we're adding bits of personality, we become a player on the field. And that's where we unconsciously see the difference when reading content. We can somehow tell, is this a player actually sharing an insight or a company sharing actual good content? Or is this a coach from the sidelines screaming that they know how to do it, but they haven't been in the field for years? That's what we're trying to find the balance in between. But the good thing from with the AI bad authenticity is that long form is making a comeback. I think I've said this a couple times already, but AI loves making short posts because the shorter it is, the more accurate it can remain. The longer it has to make a text, the more it has to start hallucinating to find details. So it prefers short ones, which gave us a big hate for very short content. So we're looking for something longer. Plus, if the actual For You page would do its thing, is working correctly, then the longer posts are still very relevant, still very interesting. So naturally, you want to read more. So adding a bit of depth or more knowledge is starting to jump out again. Meaning, you can either take your best short post, one of your top performing posts, and just make it into a longer post because it has proven that it works. Assuming it's not a birthday post or something in that area, like if it's an actual educational post, I mean, feel free to try this with a birthday post and tell me how it goes. When it's educational content, make it longer, make it bigger. Here I am again. You can definitely just ask AI, make this longer, fact check, or make a first draft with AI. But try to aim for something between 800 to 1,500 words. This is a lot. So this is, I'm talking LinkedIn article long. Normally, what most people now categorize, or last year as a long post, is somewhere between 150 to 200 words. So this is definitely a lot. If you go anything above 200 or 250 words, you're already considered to be in long form waters. Because we're used to just 3 lines of words. An easy way to do this is just look up maybe your shorter text. What was it about? Just add an example, more details, more steps. Maybe if you're doing like a 3-step program or the 3 steps I do when using AI, give an actual example. Like, okay, step 1 would look like this, or step 2, especially when we're talking about some abstract things we do in the service sector. For coaching, for example, or maybe in HR, in consulting, there are certain things we do with our clients that everyone kind of knows the name, but no one can truly picture what it means. So add an example, and you already have a pretty long post. If you have some kind of blog posts on your website already, feel free to also turn those into like a LinkedIn article. Since long form is doing well, articles are doing well, and newsletters will most likely pick up as well. But that's just an easy way to reuse content that's already on your website anyways. You can also link back to them in the article itself. But you don't have to rewrite it, you just post it on LinkedIn and it'll actually get traction by itself just because it falls under all the requirements of being long form. That will also save you some time. So for this trend, what you can actually do this whole quarter is create a piece of some original kind of research. Whether you investigate something, so you ask or go Google or use Claude or use chat. Whether you survey clients, if you ask them how they're feeling, how they're using something, experiment yourself, try something for 30 days, make a post about that. But creating content with some unique and original research always does best because you're the only one that has this knowledge. You're automatically authentic just because you're the only one who has it. At the same time, most of us are in the service sector. Whenever we have a new client, we already have to do some digging into the new client, get to learn their niche, learn their problems, what the company is like. 9 times out of 10, you've already done some kind of research that you found like, oh, didn't know this. I might have been working in the sector for years, but still didn't know this specific thing. There you go. That's already a good post to use with original research. So you don't necessarily have to spend hours trying to research something. You do it more often than you think. So things you could do is a detailed case study. That's usually between like 500 to 800 when adding enough detail. the ultimate guide too. Sometimes there are certain things you do over and over again, and you just like, you know what, I'll just not summarize this, but just write it out fully, like this is how I do things. It can be as easy as how I write a social media post, or maybe how I prompt my AI tool to get good content, or something easy like that. If it's a habit you do over and over again, write it out. It's muscle memory by now, so you exactly know what to write. And then just pour it into a post. Lessons learned. Usually that one's pretty hard to summarize, so it naturally becomes a long one. But for this as well, use resources you already have. If you have, let's say for Willow, I take 3 or 4 client stories about a law firm doing their marketing, just throw them all into AI and ask, you know what, make the ultimate guide for law firms to do their marketing themselves. The result I get is literally just from stories I entered, right, gave it, but it gives me a starting point. So again, you have so much more knowledge and so much more tools available than you think. You just have to be smart enough which ones you actually throw into AI and just have it do its thing. But I'm going to say that a lot as well. So what can you do or build a habit of every month is just pick a morning or an afternoon a month and just sit down for like 90 minutes to write one long form piece of content. Usually it will take you less if you use a resource you have lying around anyways. But if you have, like, if you spend 90 minutes actually writing one long piece, you have 4 or 5 shorter posts during the month as well. We'll have enough content to actually split it up into 4 or 5 posts. 4 maybe from the actual piece. The 5th one might be what I learned from writing this long post. You have a 5th one. Or if you manage to get 5, that would actually just be a 6th one. But again, you do this more often than you realize. So you might not even have to actually schedule in that one morning or one afternoon. You might already do it somewhere anyways. Then we've all started to realize that AI is learning from our social media posts. If you ask ChatGPT something, it's starting to give your social media post as a response. Same thing with Google. They're starting to show up in your Google searches as well. So your brand consistency is going to matter more than ever. Making sure that your brand is consistent along all platforms so that AI can tell that you're the same company on 3 platforms instead of 3 competitors on 3 different platforms. So what you do for that, one is just audit. Do you actually look similar? Are the business names the same with exactly the same spelling if possible? I'm also aware some handles might be taken, or you might have to get creative sometimes, but try to get them as close to the original. A fun example is a wine bar close to me. Its entire branding uses wine bar in the name. If you look at the sign, it says the name of the bar and then wine bar underneath. On social media, for some reason, they use the Dutch wijnbar. They use the Dutch word for wines, which makes them very hard to find on social media. Everyone knows they're there, but no one can actually find them because of that small difference. So try to see if you can make it as close to the original as possible. Make sure you have the same profile picture. I think this one's obvious, but I still see some people having different versions or colors of their logo as a profile picture. It makes it easier to work with on Willow, that I know. I know it's easier to see the differences, but for AI, I think they would actually prefer just to use the same profile picture everywhere. Description and tagline, this is just something you should do anyways. Make sure those are always up to date, so it's never a bad thing to check those. Check that your websites are also still correct. I'm surprised to see how many people, especially if you use like a link tree or something, double check that what's actually still mentioned in your link tree is still relevant somehow. Sometimes I see links in there to places that have not been touched in decades, where the dust is just all across. It looks like an empty temple. Remove that one. Just make sure whatever you're linking to is relevant. Because in this case, like in Linktree, we can see it. The same thing with your website. If it's in the back end, it might be visible for the rest of the world, but if it's there, AI will find it. That's why audit to see that everything that it instantly can find is correct. So we just make sure that the biggest mistakes it can make are avoided. This is something that's more hypothetical, but I threw it in here anyways. Is normally, if AI works correctly, you should just be able to mention your name or your brand name and not necessarily have to link to your website. So in your post, you can just say at, let's say, Willow, we found that, or we just launched the Willow tool. Learned this with working with clients at Willow. By just using your name, AI should be able to link you to the use case that you're suggesting. So it doesn't necessarily need a new link to link back to your website to realize who you are, since it can track you across pretty much all platforms already. This doesn't mean you're not allowed to add a link once in a while. Of course, if it's relevant, or if we do a big post about here are the 5 social media trends or 6 social media trends we expect for 2026, plus a video, naturally we'll also put a link to the video. So I'm not saying you don't have to do it anymore. Just be aware that adding in your name, even if it's subtly, actually helps just for you to appear in brand searches, or for AI to know what to link you with. That's my next one. Getting mentioned by others has the same effect. For example, say that Willow is now working with Nike, the shoes, and that Nike is using Willow to plan all of its social media. Then if they were to make a post saying, we are now working with Willow, blah, 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 they actually mention Willow, AI is going to look and see like, okay, why was Willow mentioned with Nike? Like, what did they have to do with Nike? Are they partnering up? Is Nike using their services? Have they been bought up by Nike? Who knows? But if it then registers like, oh, this is a use case, like Willow is being used by Nike, the problem that Nike had was solved by Willow. If then someone from Adidas or Puma or whatever other shoe brand you can think of were to use AI to Google something similar, to ask like, okay, I'm social media, I'm looking for a tool, whatever, it should say like, oh, you're in a very similar niche to Nike. Willow could also be a solution for you. So being mentioned, both tagged or just your name mentioned, can do a lot. Now, of course, Willow, we have Willow, the social media platform. There is a lawnmower named Willow. There is, I think it's baby food. It's also named Willow. Like, if your name comes back in a lot of different things, do try to get tagged. Also, collaborate with people. Comments as well. Making comments, like if you read something interesting, make a comment to the actual author by tagging them like we usually do, and then make your comments. Most often, if they respond to you, they tag you as well. And AI will just register that you were commenting under a certain post. So that also helps. So again, engaging has different ways of coming together, but it's always beneficial. And then make your content a little bit AI friendly. I'm not saying that the main focus of you writing content should be to make sure that it's good for AI. People are still reading it. We're not going to go anywhere anytime soon. But try to think about what people would use or search for in AI instead of Google. We're all, if you're a marketeer, not an office manager, but mostly marketeers, we got trained to think about SEO when writing things. Like, okay, how would this show up in Google? What would this do? It's still very similar with AI, but people just write longer sentences. People aren't as to the point as they used to be in Google. So we have a lot more leeway with our keywords now. But things like LinkedIn tips for small businesses, content marketing on a budget, social media for law or HR or something like that. If you actually map out your socials in total, if you have like a month plan, which is like topics, feel free to just, again, here I am again, throw that into AI and just ask for each of these post ideas, what's a certain line or a couple of words I could include or keywords I could include that actually make it easier to find on AI? It doesn't have to be more than that. And if you forget, it's also fine. It's an easy way to help you be more visible, but I'd rather you keep talking to your people, connecting with people, than actually focusing on how to make it perfect for AI. The trends we also saw was video. LinkedIn is still pushing video very much. If you post a video, you do get good results, but most people struggle with creating videos. So that's why I didn't add any step-by-step guides to what you could do. because I'm not sure who's going to be in the webinar, but are there any questions about videos or anything you're curious about? More than happy to dive in. I was just wondering if the audience was actually going to be using video or not. Go ahead. JB, I think Yasmin, am I correct? Hello? No, I don't hear you. No problem, like take your time. No worries. I have this problem myself sometimes. Out of nowhere, my headset just decides to stop working. It's okay. Can you type your question in the chat? Yeah, there we go. Great minds think alike. This is something for videos. If you have the time to post videos, go ahead, do it, but don't feel obliged. Even though LinkedIn pushes it, it's not going to make or break your socials. If you do everything else well or do your best to do the rest well, if you add a video or not, it's not going to change much. It might give you an extra boost of visibility, but don't worry if you don't manage to do it properly or manage to get it into your content anywhere. Same thing with AI videos. If you guys have been experiencing, oh, there we go. So if I get the question correct, you're saying like, okay, if you have like a behind the scenes, a funny TikTok style video, if they work on LinkedIn, it depends on the trend. A lot of people are complaining that LinkedIn has become too soft. So it's a fine line between what I would and would not post. But for example, the blowing bubbles trend, like I wish, but none of my colleagues smoke, like you're all just blowing bubbles. That one did pretty well. I'm seeing people do that's a regular post, the 2026 and then back to 2016 trend. So it really depends. If it's a very silly one, try to post it around like a holiday, that it makes sense why we're kind of doing things differently because we're connecting it to a holiday. Maybe it's like a funny Halloween post or Christmas post. But for the rest, I would be more careful. And if you're uploading something, try to do it for LinkedIn in the landscape. The true vertical ones, the reel or TikTok styles, have not taken off at all. Even though they appear in the video section, they're not doing well at all. So if you want to post something, I do recommend going for landscape, but I usually think like, is it adding value to LinkedIn specifically? Now, if you guys are planning to make the difference between like what's the difference between you and any competitor is that we're a fun and connected team, that would make sense to post that. I just wouldn't go overboard. I hope that kind of, okay, that kind of explained it. Anyone else have a specific question about a video? Okay, then. These were the 6 trends. So just to recap, if you only have 15 minutes this quarter, just update your LinkedIn bio, set up like a tracking sheet for some meaningful metrics, or try to think about what else could I measure? What other data do I have lying around that could also be useful to track? And write down your 3 core content topics. This one is going to be important that you kind of stay on topic. It's fine to stray once in a while, but Instagram also proves the more strict you are on your topics, the better you do perform. If you have a bit more time, do your consistency audits, make your authenticity bank. I do recommend making this one. It's actually very helpful to sit through and think about this for once. So definitely check if you can make one like these. Save worthy tests, it's pretty easy to do. Yeah, of course. plan your next topic. I'm really hoping you're working more than 3 days ahead. If not, I'm doing a very bad job as a coach. Try to write some long-form content or free test videos if you want to try video. Like, play around with it, get used to being in front of a camera if that's what you're trying, or get used to filming. So just put it into a habit that if you want to do this, practice it enough. Even now, if I have to make a reel or something, I have to do it 2 or 3 times just because I don't do it enough, and I have to get back into the flow of talking to myself, like getting comfortable just talking, and then not going off script too. If you have more time, try to do some research or make like a detailed case study. Then the last 12 minutes of the webinar, I'm going to go a bit off script because I noticed through all the slides, I mentioned that the battle is between using AI or not using AI. We're not going to stop using AI. So I thought I might as well just throw in some use cases in which I use AI to actually get very decent marketing content that doesn't feel too much like AI, or the best ways that I've found that AI actually really benefits my work or really speeds up my process. So the 3 tools I recommend everyone kind of use is ChatGPT. It's great because it's completely unlimited with how many actual messages you can send. It's definitely great for things like HR because it's a bit softer usually. If you want very like hardcore content, then Claude would be better. But I prefer ChatGPT for more the gentle human kind of content. I use Claude. I use the paid version for ChatGPT and Claude. Claude is great for research. If you want to get some more research, some more insights, specifically if you're an office manager that has to ask someone in the company to proofread or give you some things to work with or extra expertise, doing just a research with Claude, you literally just type in, I have to make content for this niche. Can you please help me research about this topic, and just let it do its thing, or ask for an in-depth research. If you add the word in-depth to any prompt, you get better results instantly. And then Gemini, if you want to make some pictures. Gemini, I just use it for free, but it's one of the best tools I found so far to actually make some. But this is basically my entire tool stack that I switch between for social media. But again, use what you already have. If you have case studies, if you have blog posts, brand books, sales pitches, emails maybe. For my first post idea, the 5 most asked questions of the week. I'm thinking about accountancy firms, for example, with Pipple, all the questions they're getting. Okay, go through the last 5 emails, last 5 sales calls, make a list or ask AI just to summarize which questions are just being asked the most. Make a post about this. I use this trick as well. I'm promoting like an event, and in the middle of a series of info evenings for specific events, they're pricey events, so people like to come and ask questions. I make recordings that make a transcript of whatever questions were asked, and then just make sure that I already answer these questions in the next batch of emails I'm sending. Because I know apparently this is what keeps people up. I can just use that already. It's like real-time feedback. Same thing as for upcoming events. Even if you're making an event post, just upload all the website copy from the registration page. Just ask AI to start with that. Don't bother rewriting the whole context, just throw that in. An underrated one that I don't see enough people use is just create a persona. We say that AI is the expert on everything, then ask him to just be the expert. Instead of saying, can you write me a post about recruitment, or can you write me, now I work in a tech company, so I don't prompt like this ever. My prompts are like 3 pages long. So I have no idea how a basic prompt looks. So apologies if this is completely off to what most people use. But what I always recommend is give your tool enough, whatever tool you're using, enough information on your company, throw in the copy from the website, the brand book, whatnot, and then just ask the following prompt. Like say, you are a LinkedIn marketing expert and strategist, or top tier marketeer focused on LinkedIn and strategy or something, with a full understanding or an in-depth understanding of this sector, marketing, law, HR, whatever you want. And then say, now write a post about whatever you need, like an expert in the field would write it while maintaining the LinkedIn copywriting best practices. So you're telling him, I want you to act like the expert in the field, but you're also a LinkedIn marketing expert. So make sure you combine both. The result you get from this is 100 times better, because you're telling him you're not just gonna do what I ask with random knowledge. No, you're gonna actually try to get into the persona of an expert in that field. Also very useful, again, if you're an office manager that has to ask your CEO or your manager for a lot of feedback, doing this already puts the post a lot closer to the finished product. Unless if you're in a niche with a lot of numbers, so I'm looking at IT with very specific terminology or accounting with very specific numbers, then use Claude. That's the only time I would say switch to Claude, because its numbers and its knowledge are a lot better than ChatGPT. It still makes mistakes, but they're far less. For HR or something, this techniques work perfect on ChatGPT. So don't worry about that too much. And then the last thing, I have 7 minutes, so it should be good. The best way to use an AI tool like ChatGPT or an LLM, if you're in the full tech niche, is actually understanding how they work or how they're programmed. So any tool like ChatGPT is pre-programmed to just work through a sequence. It's literally told when the user asks this, you need to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then print out the result. That's basically all that's in their mind. We look at them like they're some kind of expert. That's all they do. Just look at what do you ask? What sequence do I have to follow in order to give you the output you need? Which gives the problem. If you were to ask, write me a post about social media best practices for Willow, first, it looks like, okay, what do I need to do? Or what is the output that's expected? That's a full post. Then it thinks through, what do I need to do? Let's research what the hell is Willow, assuming I haven't explained that. Then look up social media tips. We haven't specified which platform, which kind of tips, which niche, so he's just gonna come up with like 3 or 4 random tips we have no control over because he's still thinking, he's not creating any output. Then he's gonna start looking up LinkedIn best practices, but are we talking personal branding, company branding, long form, short form, whatever? We again have no control over this step either. Then step 4 is just combine all of them into a post. The result you get is a post that is somewhere far in line with what you were thinking, and you have to iterate a lot more times to get close to what you need. And that's simply just because you have no control over the steps, because you're asking too much at once. So the best results actually come when you force it to break its sequence or just type it in a way that it can't run the sequence. How do you do that? You just ask one thing at a time and then check the output before you let it go to the next step. Example, I would start with, like in step 1, I went to research what is Willow. So I start with, here is everything I know about Willow or I have about Willow. What do you think? Or tell me what you think about the company. Just to check, does it truly understand what I'm thinking Willow is? Or are there parts missing or things that are interesting to know? Specifically, when it starts hallucinating about the story of the CEO or something, double check. If it's correct, move on to the next step. If not, just tell them like, oh, hey, here's a bit more context. This and this is going on, or you want to focus on this project or this product, give it more information. If that's done, if you're happy with the output it gives you for the company, then just go on, say, okay, for context, I need to make a LinkedIn post about social media tips for my company page. Important to mention, it's LinkedIn, it's a company page. Make sure all the tips are about something. Give it a couple of lines to work in between, and then just say, give me a list of options. Give me a list of all the tips you can think of. Output, very nice list of tips, and you just select the ones that are closest to what you were thinking. We're trying to speed up the process, but now you can actually handpick the ones you want. The final result will have the tips or the kind of tips you had in mind. Okay, we're happy with the different tips we found. Next up, make a prompt saying, for the writing, you're the copywriter or you're the expert. But I tell them, you have in-depth, how would you write this as a copywriter? And I specifically tell them, do not start writing yet. I want to know What tone of voice will you be using? What kind of words do you think are necessary? Again, it takes some getting used to, but you're really trying to force them to not run ahead of itself. So ask, what kind of writing style would you use? It's going to tell you the tone of voice, update where necessary. Most of the cases, I don't even bother because it's usually pretty good. But again, you're forcing him to think through the stage of what tone of voice would I need for this company on LinkedIn. Can't just rush over it and take the general one it always uses. Step 4, put everything into a post with the discussed above information, and the output you get is a much higher quality post. Now, I split this over 4 slides. It sounds like a lot of work. In the beginning, it is, because your brain is getting used to not just letting AI do its thing, but you're taking control again. So in the beginning, it takes some thinking, takes some work, but after a while, it becomes very normal to start thinking like, oh, you're going to do this step and this step, because you're going to get used to being in control again. We always work from the idea that whatever AI delivers, we just have to go with. You don't. You can completely prompt it the way you like to use it. And then I always use this when working in bulk. So I use the same strategy when making content for anyone in Willow, by the way. I can go through all the steps. But then for context, I can just say, we're not making one post, we're making 13 weeks worth of content. Again, if I say you're making 13 weeks worth of content, don't let it generate everything at once, or not just full out posts. No, give me a list of all the content ideas you were going to use. Double check if they're okay, then have them write it. Really forcing it to snap out of just doing everything for you, because then you have full control over everything it does. This is a bit more advanced, so it's not as easy if you don't bother with any of this. Content will still be fine. But if you do enjoy playing with it, I do recommend giving this a shot. You'd actually be surprised that it, A, forces you to think. We get stuck in that trap of just letting AI do its thing. This forces you to think again, like a strategist, like a marketeer. What would you do? And then secondly, like, the results are so much better because you're back in control. You're telling AI what to do, and if it doesn't listen, say it again. But you're in control. And that should be my last slide. I thought I had one more. Oh, there we go. And exactly on time. Did any questions pop up through any of this, or anything that was unclear? I always assume that silence is a good thing. So again, this recording also, was that a question you had?
No, I said that you assume well.
This will also be found on the website for the people who weren't there in the beginning. I'll switch again. If you go to the Willow website, so just type in willow.co, all the way at the bottom, that's a bit, there we go. You'll find a section that says customer success and a link that says webinars. I click this. You get into our customer success space. Click webinars again, just because it takes you to the anchor down below. And here you're going to find the 6 social media trends. So all the trends that were in slides are explained in depth in the video here. And another bubble will appear once this recording actually hits the platform. But here you can also find every recording that we use and every guest if you want to download them. Which again, here I am again. I actually download my own slides and just throw them back into ChatGPT for asking, like, okay, we're working with trends. Here you go. Here are the slides. I don't bother looking up the research if I can download it somewhere else. Be smart with your resources. Okay, then I think that's everything. If no one has any other questions, now is the time. Now, if you ever hold your peace. Okay, then I hope you guys learned something, a lot or a little, that's up to you. And I wish you guys a really great day.
Thank you too.
Okay.
For you too. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye bye.
Was that another question, or are you just waiting?
No, sorry, just fighting with my tools. Just wanted to say thank you very much. It was a great piece of knowledge for me. I'm very new to it. I really appreciate your time.
You're
Have a
welcome.
fantastic afternoon.
You too. Thank you for coming. Enjoy your day.